we're looking at population statistical information for population growth in Canada. And we see a huge spike up in 2023 to about 1.2, 1.3 million in population growth, which is significantly different than a couple of years ago. So first of all, what's the difference here? The red section is NPR, or non-permanent residents. Yellow is PR, permanent residents. So NPR, an example of that would be international students. Yellow would be immigration for people who are planning to reside and stay in Canada for a longer period of time. So what does this do today? This is having three different kind of impacts. One is on housing demand, specifically rentals in this case, because of the volume of non-permanent residents who are less likely to buy in the short term. It's going to have a huge impact on rental demand. Even a couple of years ago, rental demand was, not rental demand, but housing demand, I should say, was askew, meaning the supply was way lower than the demand. Now when you add in this huge spike, it gets even worse. Second impact is on consumer consumption, so CPI and inflation. It's going to push up those numbers and show resistance in those numbers lowering. We know how closely the Bank of Canada is watching CPI and inflation, and this is going to have an impact on that and be, showing resistance essentially. Third impact would be on GDP. So GDP numbers, as one article cites, are anemic, meaning relatively stagnant. But when you look at per capita GDP numbers, it's 5 straight quarters of decline. 2 quarters of decline indicates recession. 5 quarters of decline would start to be lowering interest rates on a typical basis. So what does this mean, the net effect of this? Well, the Fed's just announced a 2-year cap on international students, which would represent roughly a 35% decline. Now that's going to lower this spike. So I guess if we zoom out for a second, this population growth is not sustainable, not in terms of housing, or healthcare or transportation. It's not sustainable. So it won't stay the way it is, even despite the recent announcement about international students. Regardless of that, it wouldn't be sustainable. So it will change, would be my prediction on that. And so what does that mean when that changes? Well, it's going to mean GDP is going to be a more true reflection. CPI and inflation is going to be a more true reflection, which is likely to equate to interest rates dropping. Now, they're already predicting that. Macklem said in the last update that, as one article said again, they didn't just put it on the back burner, they unplugged the stove entirely in terms of more rate increases. So now it's just a question of when do they decrease and at what speed. This data suggests that they might increase quicker than is currently predicted. That's really the heart of what this looks like. Now, we did extrapolations in terms of the current predictions, in terms of what's that likely to equate to in terms of market prices. Now, why is this relevant for investors? For investors, and homeowners for that matter, the question is, are we at the bottom of the valley? Are we about to ride this wave up and out of the bottom of this curve, like at the end of the 89 correction, like at the end of the 08 correction? This is where there is a huge opportunity. That's why this data becomes very relevant. If you like this type of thing as it relates to a tool to inform you about when and how is the best times to invest, join us in the next economic update where we'll be sharing this and a whole bunch more.